Hi there, and thanks for joining us for another installment of Inside F&M Wrestling. I'm Brad Weltmer here for GoDiplomats.com, and joining me is Franklin and Marshall head wrestling coach Mike Rogers. Mike, thanks for sitting down here with us today.
Thank you.
So the NCAA Championships are coming up this week, but before we get to that, let's look back at the EIWAs from a little over a week ago. A few of you guys picked up wins to earn some points for your team, none more so than Rick Durso, who suffered a tough loss in the championship bracket, but really battled back to take a third-place finish. So just talk about your team's performance there and what you saw out of your guys.
Yeah, you know what we talked about. We were hoping to get more individual wins. We wanted every weight class to score at least some points, get a match, at least win a match. But our conference has gotten so much tougher. They've added Boston, they've added Hofstra, they've added Drexel, and BU. So I mean, it's a challenging conference, and it got a lot tougher. But the guys who did win, Chucky picked up a win for us. He got a fall early, and then Sharon got a win for us, and a lot of the other guys were really close. So even though we didn't do what we were hoping to do, our guys fought, and we're close to getting some wins in some of those other weights. And Rick, it was kind of it's tough going as a one seed. There's only two directions: you win it or you fall short. But he had that Boston kid was very good. Scotland does a nice job of wrestling Rick. He has a very hard style for Rick to wrestle against. He's pretty much just sits back and waits for one takedown or two. So Rick and Rick didn't really wrestle his match on Saturday evening. He was kind of I think he was looking a little bit ahead, possibly. He was kind of already thinking about getting into the semis and maybe what he had before wrestling his quarter match. And the Boston kid, I gotta give him credit. He did a nice job of wrestling Rick close and then cook it in overtime and got a takedown in overtime. But Rick did a great job of recovering off that loss. Obviously, it wasn't what he was hoping or wanted to happen, but it happens. It happens at every level. It happens at the NCAA tournament. It happens everywhere. So it's coming back and wrestling your best matches. Sometimes coming through after a loss, and he had to come back and battle through and beat some really good kids, and got to meet the kid again and won the match. It was a close match, but it was Rick had to control the match the whole time. So he made the adjustments, did what he had to do, and if he had to come back and take third, I think he was happy to come back and take third and beat the kid who put him in the consolations. But at the end of the day, it's all getting out the NCAA tournament. How you get there, it doesn't really matter. Just getting out there. So now he's out at the tournament, and I think he's in a pretty good spot. Right now we're focusing on one match at a time. Right now we know he has the Maryland kid, and that's who we're focusing on. We're not really looking past that. I think that's where he kind of got in trouble at the conference, looking maybe a little bit too far ahead. So, but it should be an exciting tournament. This is Rick's second time there, so the excitement of being there is not going to be as overwhelming, I think, as last year. I think last year was kind of caught up in the atmosphere, and I mean it's electric when you're there. If you've never been there, or especially competing on that floor, and now with ESPN doing all the coverage they're doing, there's cameras everywhere, and something that we're just not used to dealing with. So I think that's going to be not as an influencing factor. He's just going to focus on the competition in wrestling now.
And so when we sat down throughout the year, you've talked about how you've been preparing Rick for this tournament, taking him out to the Midland to some of these competitions where he's going to see other wrestlers. But lately, what have you been doing to get him prepared for this tournament?
Really what we did, we gave him a couple days off after conference, but we brought him back and we put him through a 3-day simulation of the NCAA tournament. We trained him at 12 o'clock and 8 o'clock, which would be the times that he'll be wrestling out there at Oklahoma. So he's used to wrestling at those times, working out at 11 o'clock their time, 12 o'clock our time, and then same thing, 7 o'clock would be a second round out there, 8 o'clock our time. So the biggest thing is just getting him used to that. Those times that he's going to be competing, which is kind of different than typically we usually tournament you're wrestling 9 o'clock in the morning all day long without any breaks, or dual meets, it's 7 o'clock at night, one match. So the NCAA tournament is kind of a completely different thing that you're not used to doing all season long. So we try to simulate that the last week or so, just working out at the times and training him at the times that he'll be competing. And he needs to really focus on the downtime. There's almost a 7-hour gap between the first round and the second round. a little less depending on when he leaves and stuff. So 5 to 6 hours, he's going to have a lot of downtime, and he needs to really. And we're, as a coaching staff, we're going to try to focus on getting him relaxed. You got to kind of. It's hard to do, but you got to forget about the competition part of it and try to, get some sleep or distract yourself. Because that 5 hours of you constantly thinking about your next match and you're wrestling it over and over in your head can actually physically wear you down. It wears you down mentally, but then you're kind of exhausted before you get out there. And I think that's kind of what happened last year. He was kind of already, he wasn't really relaxing in between those rounds. So what we try to simulate this week is that long 5-6 hour gap between rounds where he's going to have to get off his feet, go back to the hotel, get something to eat, and try to, maybe get some sleep or just, find a way to distract him, read a book, watch a movie or something, and then get him back into competition when it's time to get back into competition. So we'll see how that works. So I think he's ready, though.
Well, thanks for sitting down here with us, and best of luck in Oklahoma.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you for tuning in. Be sure to like F&M Wrestling on Facebook, follow them on Twitter, and subscribe to the GoDiplomats YouTube page.